Hello, my name is Lucas, this is a Bit of Lit. I'm here to talk about Dune Messiah by Frank Herbert, which was published in 1969 and is the second in the Dune saga. Now, in Dune, to run down very quickly, the Emperor has hatched a scheme with the Baron Harkonnen to swap planets. Caladan, the home of the Atreides family, who the Emperor fears because of his warriors and the trust that many of the other powerful families in the Empire have in him. He has hatched a scheme to swap Caladan with Arrakis, where the Harkonnens are. And this is a trap. Leto Atreides, the patriarch, knows this. However, he does not want to arouse suspicion and sees this as an opportunity. Unfortunately, things don't work out for him, and the Atreides are betrayed and ultimately destroyed, save for the Lady Jessica and her son, Paul Atreides, who is the main character of the Dune saga for the first two books. For Dune and for Dune Messiah, we follow his story. There's a lot of pressure on this young man. He's the expected heir of the Atreides family line, but he's also the Kwisatz Haderach, which is what the Bene Gesserit group of women who have their hand in all sorts of imperial politics have been using a breeding program to create essentially a supermentat, which is a kind of superhuman, supercomputer type person that has prescience and can see the future, which Paul can't. But they didn't want Paul to be the Kwisatz Haderach. They wanted another line down. Paul was supposed to be a girl, but the Lady Jessica, loving Leto, had a son, so he could have an heir. Likewise, when he's on Arrakis, the Fremen believe in a Messiah that will come from another world. That is the child of a Bene Gesserit, which is Paul. So a lot of people have a lot of expectations for him. Now, he escapes into the desert where the Fremen live, and he becomes allies with them, gains their trust, and essentially takes over the Empire and gets his revenge in terrifying, though ultimately heroic in the first novel, terrifying fashion, though. We see forewarnings from Paul's visions of the future that is inescapable. Something he knows is going to happen, though he doesn't know how, and he doesn't know what he can do to mitigate it. 12 years later, Dune Messiah, we see the end results of what came from the end of Dune. Paul Atreides has been the emperor and is now the most powerful emperor of all time because he has complete control over the spice melange, which allows for space travel, safe space travel. And without it, the Space Guilders would be in incredible danger, and space travel would be near impossible, if not completely impossible. This has caused a lot of problems. His power, which he holds on to tightly, for fear that he might make a decision or a choice that will lead down to a worse path that he has seen, because he's seen many possible futures, and he's walking the line very carefully to make sure that the best result happens, which is also horrifying and not what he wants, because he's sort of trapped in his own fate. And the Fremen, who used to see him as a messiah figure, now sort of view him as a deified, god-like figure. And it would not matter if he was gone, because the jihad that has taken place in the known universe would continue, in which 61 billion people have died. 40 religions have collapsed, hundreds of planets have capitulated, and it's just absolutely brutal. The future now that we see Paul dealing with is scary. It's not what you might expect at all. Certainly not what I was expecting. I had heard of this novel before and some of the things that we would see in it, but it's just completely shocking. You had the warnings. I mean, he was making drum head skins of his enemies in the first novel, so you kind of knew things were going to go bad. But like this, 61 billion dead? Anyway, this novel really explores that idea of a Messiah figure, deified, and all the horrors and wrongs that can come from following a man, following a leader, I should say, that has to make these choices and sort of blindly following them and not even caring who the leader is at that point anymore, right? Because if Paul was gone, it sort of wouldn't matter. However, the book doesn't actually show the jihad, which is what I was expecting because I had heard of it. The book shows the plots and machinations to take Paul Atreides out of the equation as the emperor and remove some of the power that the emperor has so that other parties can have more control. And so we see his wife, Princess Irulan, who was the daughter of the old emperor, is in with the Reverend mother, the lead Reverend mother of the Bene Gesserit, as well as the Spacing Guild and Tleilaxu, Bene Tleilaxu group of people and others that are all planning to remove Paul from power in any way that they can. One thing that amazes me is that there are these sort of contingency plans, all different sorts of possibilities for the way these plans work out. The major thing that they're doing is looking for an heir for Paul. And they also want to split up the grasp that he has on everything. Paul doesn't want to give that up because he sees that doing so will lead to a far worse future than if he continues to do the things that are happening. He's a very different person. He's certainly not the young man that we knew in the first novel at all. He's much harder, colder in some senses. And there is a plan to get heirs, and they're hoping that Princess Irulan, who Paul will not impregnate, because his love is Chani, a Fremen woman who is his concubine, who Princess Irulan is giving contraceptives to keep her from getting pregnant. Paul knows this, but there's nothing he can do, because if he takes action, worse things happen in the future. Likewise, the Tleilaxus have a plan to give him a ghola. I hope I'm saying that right. And a ghola is a very strange concept. It's basically like reviving someone who's died, freshly dead. And they do that with Duncan Idaho, a friend and mentor to Paul Atreides, who has not seen him since he was saved by Duncan Idaho in which Duncan Idaho had been killed in the first novel. And the plan here is seemingly to have Duncan Idaho, who is now Hayt, or Hayt, I think it's Hayt, Hayt. The plan seems to be for Paul to be killed by Hayt once they get their heir from Princess Irulan and so on. But that's not the case. The case is for Paul to see that they can in fact bring the dead back and make sure that they have their memories, because a ghola has sort of imprints of who they used to be, but they are not who they used to be. But through these plots and tricks, they're trying to show Paul step by step that the ghola can return to who they used to be and have those memories and be that person again. I won't spoil why, but it's really well done, I think. I was expecting Duncan Idaho's return to be really lame and dumb, but I was impressed with this aspect of the story, this little subplot. One problem with the novel, I would say, and I think something that does definitely make it weak, I can see it being weaker than the first one. The first novel is definitely very epic in scope, and this one is lots of plots and machinations and that kind of thing, which is really fun for me. I love to read that kind of stuff, but the way women are portrayed is ghastly, so to speak. They're Chani and Princess Irulan are just focused on having children, and Paul's sister Aliyah of the Knife, who I really enjoy in this novel, although I wish there was more done with her character, and Chani and Princess Irulan. They're fairly one note. Princess Aliyah is boy crazy for Hayt or Duncan Idaho, and I think there's still a little bit of depth there, but definitely her driving force is being boy crazy. But she's she's like an old woman who is the conglomeration of all Reverend mothers since birth in a teenage body. So I think there's a lot going on there that's quite interesting. I definitely enjoy her more than in the first novel, which I thought Aliyah was just utterly bizarre. And I don't know how, I don't really think I like it, but I like her now in this novel. And I look forward to Children of Dune, where I assume she will play a big role, because she is the regent queen or regent empress for all the known universe, while children are growing up. And I won't say whose children they are, what's going on. I don't really want to spoil too much, but I do think, I read this for maybe Midrash, and I really enjoy the way that it shows people blindly following somebody to a point where their status as a deified figure is sort of set. Paul manages to escape that in a really amazing way, and I would like to not spoil that, even though it's over 50 years old. I just think it's really incredible how everything ties up pretty well. And yeah, I don't have too much else to say. Incredible book. Looking forward to Children of Dune. I've heard it's even better. So, thank you.